You are listening to Practical and Woo by Mindset and Manifest. My name is Eden, and I invite you to embark on a journey with me to explore the practical and spiritual edges of the unknown for the purpose of allowing you to embody and empower yourself uniquely as you are and to intentionally create and live a life of freedom and fulfillment. Each week, I am going to discuss topics such as energetics, reality creation, manifestation, astrology, tarot, and more to help empower you to live beyond perceived limitations and to practically design your life so it feels like absolute magic every step of the way. Let's dive in. Well, hello, brilliant soul. I am sure you've heard that beliefs create your reality. But have you ever noticed how true this is? Have you ever stopped to peel back the layers of how this works? Or even how your particular beliefs might be limiting what's possible for you? I have witnessed many people who are cognitively aware of this concept who then continue to not be able to see how the belief of something operates in their lives, where a common pattern continues again and again, solidifying that particular belief that's operating under the surface. A sense of believing disguised as knowing. Well, this is the way that these circumstances usually work. This is the way that they've always worked. But how do you know? What if believing something different yielded a different result? It begs the question, where might we hold on to beliefs that we are assuming are undeniable truths, but are simply the things that we've convinced ourselves of? To understand this concept, let's first look at where this idea comes from. Interestingly, the notion that beliefs and assumptions can harden into fact isn't something that's only been explored in contemporary self-help literature or New Thought philosophies. In fact, it can actually be traced back to multiple streams of thought across various disciplines. In cognitive behavioral therapy, this idea is rooted in the understanding that cognitive distortions such as confirmation bias can solidify our beliefs about the world, ourselves, and others. Essentially, once we hold a belief, we start looking for evidence that confirms it, leading us to overlook or dismiss anything that contradicts it. This has the effect of making a belief feel more like a concrete fact, even though it's just a mental construct. This, in essence, is why beliefs can feel so real. When we believe that we're not good enough, for example, we start to notice all the little ways we reinforce that belief. Maybe we see other people succeeding where we're struggling, and our mind interprets that as evidence that we are truly inferior. The more we focus on that belief, the more it hardens into the fact of our reality. This brings us to the fascinating work of neuro-linguistic programming, which tells us that our language and internal dialogue are not just reflections of our reality. They also shape our reality. NLP teaches that when we tell ourselves something often enough, it becomes part of our internal programming. And eventually, this programming hardens into our perception of the world. Our beliefs about ourselves, whether positive or negative, become so ingrained that they start to feel as true as any objective reality. But it's not just in the world of modern psychology that we see this concept at play. If we trace this idea back further, we can find it in the writings of ancient philosophers as well. One philosopher who comes to mind is Plato, who in his philosophical works touched on the idea of beliefs hardening into fact through his theory of forms. Plato argues that our perceptions and beliefs about the world are often mere shadows of deeper, unchanging truths. In his work, The Republic, Plato describes how individuals can become trapped in a limited perspective, much like prisoners in a cave who are only seeing shadows on a wall and mistaking them for reality. According to Plato, These beliefs and assumptions, when not questioned or explored, become so ingrained in our minds that they feel as real and as unchangeable as the world that's outside the cave. In essence, Plato suggested that our beliefs, if left unchecked, shape the way we perceive and engage with the world, ultimately hardening them into fact that is accepted as truth. By challenging our assumptions and seeking a deeper understanding of the true nature of things, we can transcend the limitations of our beliefs and discover a more expansive reality, including that of our limitless potential. From a spiritual perspective, this concept is echoed in the teachings of various traditions that emphasize the power of our mind in creating reality. Think about the idea presented in quantum physics, which says that the observer influences the outcome. The famous double-slit experiment demonstrated that particles behave differently when they are observed. This is similar to how our inner world, our beliefs and assumptions, affect the way we perceive our outer world. When we assume that we are not capable, we observe the world through a lens of limitation, and we keep finding evidence of that in our experience. So this phenomenon, our beliefs and assumptions hardening into fact, is an idea that has roots not just in psychology, but also in philosophy, spirituality, and even quantum mechanics. So how does this work in practice, and how can we use it to our advantage? In order to see this process in action, let's consider a common scenario. Imagine someone who has been struggling with self-esteem. They've faced challenges in their career, their relationships, and in their personal life. Somewhere along the way, they've adopted the belief that they're just not good enough. Every time they make a mistake, they use the mistake as evidence of that belief. They assume that they are less capable than others, or that they will never measure up to the expectations around them. Now, their assumption, though perhaps not objectively true, is so strongly believed that it starts to shape their experience. Because they are convinced of their perceived inadequacy, they make choices that reinforce that belief. They might not apply for that new job because they don't think they're qualified. They might avoid difficult conversations in relationships because they assume they're not worthy of being heard. And in doing so, they are constantly reaffirming the fact that they are not good enough, when in actuality, this fact is just a self-imposed assumption that is appearing real. When we value things beyond our control, like the approval of others or external markers of success, we give away our power and start to see our worth in terms of how those things play out. This makes us vulnerable to the very assumptions we've made about ourselves, reinforcing a cycle of internal conflict, uncertainty, and a slew of unfulfilled desire. This is where the power of awareness comes in. If you are able to recognize that your beliefs are not necessarily objective truths, but rather they are malleable, you open the door to transformation. By simply shifting your mindset and replacing limiting assumptions with more empowering beliefs, you begin to create new patterns in your life, patterns that align with your truest potential rather than your perceived limitations. So how do you undo the hardening of assumptions and beliefs that no longer serve you? How do you shift from a place of limitation to a place of empowerment? You must first become aware of the beliefs that are holding you back. This requires radical honesty, and it might mean taking responsibility for the things that you may have blamed or accused others of doing to you. I know this can be a really, really hard pill to swallow. Take a look at your life. What patterns do you notice? Where do you keep getting stuck? What assumptions do you have about yourself, others, or the world that might be shaping your experience? Once you've identified these beliefs, the next step is to gently question them. Ask yourself, is this belief 100% absolutely true? What evidence do I have that supports it? And what evidence do I have that contradicts it? For instance, let's take the belief that we've been working with. I'm not good enough. What if this belief of I'm not good enough is simply an assumption based on past failures or someone else's judgment? What if instead you believed that you are more than enough, that every challenge you faced has been an opportunity for growth and for learning? What would your life look like if you adopted that assumption instead? And before you automatically dismiss it as false or that's not true for me, have you tried to find any evidence to support that it might be true? Even the smallest speck of evidence. When you start to recognize that your assumptions and beliefs are not fixed truths, but powerful tools that shape your reality, you take back your power. You no longer have to be a passive participant in your own life, subject to whatever beliefs or assumptions that have taken root in your mind. Instead, you can actively shape the reality you want to experience. Remember, beliefs are not set in stone. They're malleable and can be changed, altered, or replaced with something, anything more empowering. You have the ability to consciously choose which beliefs you want to embrace and which ones you want to let go of. Your life is a masterpiece in progress, and the beliefs you carry are the colors that you choose to paint with. All of this to say is that I encourage you to take a moment and reflect on the assumptions and beliefs that you hold. Which ones are serving you? Which ones are limiting you? And most importantly, what new beliefs can you start to cultivate that will empower you to step into the fullest version of yourself? As we've discussed, what we assume or believe to be true becomes our reality. And with a little shift in perspective, we can change the reality in which we're living. You have the power to rewrite the script of your life, starting with your beliefs. As always, thank you for tuning into this exploration with me. If today's episode sparked something within you, feel free to share it with someone who might benefit from hearing it. Remember, you are not bound by the assumptions of yesterday. You are free to create something new, something in alignment with your highest vision for yourself and your life. Until next time.